Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Saturday morning edition of the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by BetMGM. I am your sleepy host, Josh Harris. I mean, listen, it's Saturday morning. Saturday morning, like we're gonna wipe some cobwebs out of the eyes, drink some energy.
Yeah, I had my coffee. I had my coffee this morning.
You got coffee like a normal, responsible human being. I just have poison nitrous in a can.
Well, I hadn't been drinking. Like, I was a big coffee drinker in my 20s. I hadn't been drinking that much coffee the last few years. I don't know why, man. It just seems like I need that cup of coffee in the morning when I sit down at my computer now. Is this called growing up, as Blink 182 might say?
I don't know. I've never had a sip of coffee in my life, and I know that will tilt people more than my copy and paste extravaganzas, but never had a sip of coffee. The smell just doesn't do it for me. I don't know. Like in high school, I never drank caffeine at all. And then in college, like, no. And then, like, not until my son was born, I was like, I think I need a boost in the morning.
So instead of just going to coffee like a normal person, you just go to an energy drink that has like 4 coffees worth of caffeine in it.
Yeah, go big or go home. That's what they tell me.
Yeah, right to the extreme. I like it.
Yeah. Man, we had some good nights in our Discord last night. Oliver Atticus, we mention his name literally every day because he does well every night. He won the 5, that new $5 150 max for 5,000. He also finished third in the 15. He made almost 5 figures last night. There's a couple others. Do you have them? I forgot that. I'm just like a big mess. I know. Let me scroll up in the Discord here. He also did well on FanDuel. Then we had Jetty finish, a nice finish there. We had Mr. G sweep some cash games. We had Ski. Is it Ski?
I think Ski finished second in the forecheck, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he finished second in the forecheck, 10x'd his money. Those are some great nights. Like, listen, like whether you MME, whether you single entry, whether you're cash, whether you're GPP, anytime you can get a high finish like that, it really helps. Because we've talked about it a bunch, like you're not winning every night. And if you are, you're a liar. So
Yeah.
most of the time you're just looking to make it to the next day without losing your shirt, and you play, like I say, it's like poker. It's hours of boredom and moments of sheer terror, and you need those sheer terror moments to have big cashes. And
Yeah. One thing I just want to add to that real quick is if people want to know if they're on the right track, one shortcut that was taught to me, and it's one that I use, is you look for the number of 1% finishes you have in your contest. So if there's 1,000 people in the contest, how many times do you finish in the top 10? If it's 5,000, top 50, whatever. Because once you get towards the top, especially in a large field tournament, the margins are incredibly slim. The one story I always bring up was, I think it was the 2018-19 season. I banked the $4 because Dustin Brown got a block shot with like 3 seconds left in the game, and it was a Los Angeles game, so it was the last game of the night. It was like the last thing to happen on a 10-game slate. It was a block shot, and it pushed me into first place. If he doesn't get it, I think I would have finished third. That's how thin the margins are at the top. So as long as you don't have to consistently finish in 1%, but as long as you have more 1% lineups that, over 1% of your lineups are in the top 1%, over the long haul, you should be okay in the long run. Like margins are really thin, top heavy contests, all that sort of stuff. It's just one of those little shortcuts I use to make sure I'm on the right track, and, that my builds are good and all that. So hopefully if people are finishing well, but not quite banking, that they just kind of stick with it. It's just a way to show that there are better days ahead. Hopefully, there's still 2/3 of the season left. There's 4 months left. We got a lot of hockey ahead of us. So,
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't get discouraged if you're having top 1% finishes and you're not winning the tournaments. Like Jake talks about a lot, and I see him in chat. Like, I don't want to like harp on Jake this morning, but like he's had a lot of top 1 finishes, and he's had a losing season, I think, so far. But like if he gets that quote unquote block shot, he ends up winning a tournament, and his season's completely different. So like that's how razor thin the margins are, and Jake will turn it around. He always does. He'll go on like a 2-week tear where I start questioning whether this guy is actually blue. So like he'll be fine, but that's just an example of the razor thin margins. And I had that. I stone bubbled in some GPPs last night, and those are the days you kind of like, those are the days you kind of appreciate more, like where you're fighting to min cash. Like, yeah, it sucks, but like, oh, whew, made it. We'll get better tomorrow. This and that. Yep. Yeah. Jake says, tough out there. Down for the season with 3 second-place finishes for $5K instead of the $20K top prizes. Like, yeah, like
just one of those turning into a first place,
yeah,
like I'm sure would bring him into the profit and probably pretty well. So that's
but
how thin the margins are.
Yeah, but the good thing is, like, this new $5 150 max, it's gonna like ease the pain a little bit, because putting 150 into the 5 is only 750 compared to 2250 in the 15. So yeah, the top prize isn't as high, but you're risking less as well. So yeah, obviously sometimes some people are going to be in both, but I feel like that contest is a little bit more risk adverse.
Yeah.
Anyway,
just want to give a quick shout out. Got another Christmas sweater on today. 4 weeks in a row now. My 4th wrestling Christmas sweater. We got the old Macho Man. Have a macho Christmas, everybody. So,
oh yeah. Oh no. Oh
no. A little tough on the throat to do that this early in the morning.
Yeah, but we have a couple slates to break down. The reason we can talk about that a little bit this morning, we have a 5-game main slate. We have a 3-game early slate. Contests aren't great for the early slate. I'm not playing. I have a lot to do today. I'll be on MMA Live and for a lock later, but I know a lot of you are, and we will touch on it for sure. So, yeah, let me tell you to like and subscribe first. How about that? Give us a subscribe so you can get with our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit the notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, almost all of our content is available in podcast form on the platform of your choice. Help us out by leaving a 5-star review. You know what to do. Most of you guys are probably already liked and subscribed because it is very early in the morning. You guys are diehards. We love to see it. Let's touch on this early slate. I don't think we're going to go game by game, but it is a 3-gamer. Ottawa Senators, Nashville Predators, Detroit Red Wings, Dallas Stars, Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning. I wish there was better GPPs because this is a nice little 3-gamer here. In that, I'll just give quick thoughts on the first game, and I'll send it to Cliffy, then we'll continue, and then we'll just recap. In this first game, probably going to be a Senators game for me if you want to take some one-off guys, power play guys from the Preds. I think that's fine. I just don't like these lines. They are, relatively cheap. I think going to the top line for the Senators would be my preferred option. You can power play stack as well. The Predators don't have a very good penalty kill. Yossi's super expensive. Chabot is a nice price. I think you can add him in. Actually, let me just go all 3 games. I'll kick it to Cliffy, and then he can tell me everything I said was completely false and give his narratives, and then we'll go from there. In the Stars Red Wings game, I think, the Stars top line is completely fine here. They're about the same price as they've normally been. The one thing is Detroit doesn't take a ton of penalties, but it's all right. The minutes are there for the Stars top line. The wing side, I'm not super thrilled about it. I mean, if you're playing 150, I would have a little bit of Detroit 1. I think Chronic would be the guy to add in. Miro Heiskanen off his 2-goal game. His price is kind of the same. So him and Niels Lundqvist and Esa Lindell are fine. And in this last game, if you follow me on Twitter, I do a plus money prop every day. We're up over 11 units this season. I actually bet on Victor Hedman over 2.5 shots here. Florida Panthers are a very high event team. Now that he's back on power play 1, I think, the power play spot for Tampa is pretty good. Same for the Panthers. This is probably my favorite game on the slate. I think getting stuff from both sides would be even if you're making one lineup, I might even still have stuff from both sides in this game. So yeah, this is my favorite game. So Tampa 1, Tampa power play. The Bennett Kachuk for Hagee line would be my preferred. If you want to go to Barkov Reinhart, that's fine. And then probably my second favorite, honestly, would probably be the Senators. Obviously, the Stars are in play, but there is actually a lot to like on this slate. What are you seeing?
Yeah, there are quite for only 6 teams. There's a lot of firepower here, even without guys like McDavid, McKinnon, Pasternak, and all that. Nashville kind of changed their lines up a little bit last game. I think Juuso Parssinen got benched because he had 2 turnovers leading to 2 goals, or 1 turnover, 2 turnovers, 1 leading to a bad goal, something like that. So they moved Philip Forsberg next to Nino Niederreiter. Now, they don't have very many minutes together this year, but to me, it would seem like those two would play pretty well together. Nino's pretty good, zone entry, zone exit, 2-way winger. Forsberg, obviously, really good offensively. They were with Ryan Johansson. Now, they have been using Johansson and Niederreiter as the shutdown line against opposing top lines. Ottawa's top line has been fine defensively, but not great. It's not like a brutal matchup for Nashville. So, if Johansson, Niederreiter, and Forsberg are together, I would have a little bit of interest in that, especially where Ottawa's penalty kill has really been sliding over the last few weeks. And then, you get Johansson and Forsberg on that power play. So if those guys are together, I wouldn't mind playing them. If they're not, and they don't have Granlund, Duchesne, Forsberg together, something like that, it's tough to play Nashville with the way that they have their line set up. So we'll see what happens there. I right now, I do agree with you. I think Ottawa 1 is the best line in this game. They've been pretty good offensively, even if they've had a little bit of struggles scoring. I noticed over the last 2 weeks, their expected goals for is 5 per 60 minutes. But they're scoring 2.2 goals. Eventually, Ottawa's got to start scoring. Hopefully it'll be today. Detroit and Dallas. One thing that's curious to me about this is Dallas's top line, their defensive numbers have really been on a little bit of a dive since basically Halloween. I was just looking at the last 3 weeks. 2.9 expected goals against, 3.2 actual goals against. That's not very good defensively. It would seem like Detroit's top line would be in a decent matchup, but they have been using that Dallas top line in second and third lines of late. So I'm not sure that they see much of Detroit one. Detroit's depth has been getting a little bit better, especially after Kopp got put with Sundqvist. I mean, Jonathan Berggren has looked pretty good for Detroit as well. So, like, it's one of those things. It's like Edmonton last night. Like, I'll never not say no to playing Dallas one. They're always in play. But I think, if you're looking for a reason to fade, it's their defensive numbers have been sliding a bit. Offensive numbers still good. Don't get me wrong, but maybe there are a lot of good lines on this slate. So, Dallas one is fine. I think Dallas 3, that Wyatt Johnston line might be one of those fillers that I would look to in this game. Florida and Tampa, they did leave Braden Point off the power play, which feels, I don't know, man. NHL coaches, they're
egregious.
Corey Perry on the top power play unit instead.
He scored.
Yeah, he did. Nikita Kucherov wasn't in practice yesterday. I assume it was just kind of a maintenance day, and they went back, and they'll go back to Hagel Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, and Killorn and Nick Paul with Cirelli on the third line. But with Point off the power play, it kind of takes me out of Tampa one a little bit. I agree with you. I think I would go to the Florida side of this game. Barkov and Reinhart is kind of what I was looking towards, just because you get two guys on that power play. We have said how Tampa Bay's penalty kill hasn't been very good, even as they're allowing fewer shots against as the season's gone on. The goaltending really hasn't gotten that much better. Florida's power play has actually been pretty good, even with two defensemen, and Montour and Ekblad. So Barkov and Reinhart would be the line I would look to, but I think it's just the Florida side I like in general in that game.
Yeah, and before we hit to the main slate, let's just touch on goalies really quick. No one's confirmed at this hour. I don't mind Anton Forsberg or Cam Talbot at 7,100. It's it's not ideal, but there's that. Like Ville Husso as well. Like these cheap guys it's just going to be, lock and load, buckle your seatbelt and go for it. But like those guys might see some volume. Vasilevsky 7,900 could be like, there's not a goalie that I really trust. Like Jake Ottinger obviously is fine at 8,300. Like Vasilevsky is going to see the volume, but like he's been struggling this season. Bob or Spencer Knight, they've just both got blown up. So like goalie if you have a lean, just play that guy, because there is not really a trustworthy goalie outside of Ottinger, who's also had some bad games.
Yeah, Spencer Knight, I think they said he's sick. Not sure he's going to play today. I think it'll be Bob. Like, if you're not playing Florida, I think the goalie's got to be Vasilevsky, right? Yeah. Just because of the shot volume that Florida can put up. So I guess I like Vasilevsky the best on the early slate, assuming you're not playing the Panthers. Other than that, if you want to go really cheap, I think Husso would be the guy. That's called riding the lightning, taking a goalie on the road against Dallas. I mean, Matt Murray did it, so maybe Ville Husso can as well, though it would be Husso and Vasilevsky that I'd look towards.
We rode the lightning with Vejmelka for like 3 weeks on the road.
Should have used him last night.
I did, but I swapped off Igor, who had like 6 more points because Igor had an Igor game, but that's neither here nor there. The Rangers.
I didn't watch that game, but I was looking at the stats. Looks like Colorado had a pretty good game.
Yeah. Stressing me out worse than my first marriage, but that's also neither here nor there. Let's get to the main slate, shall we?
Okay.
Yeah. We can have a Calgary Flames. 2.7 total heading into Toronto. The Maple Leafs have a 3.4 total. Markstrom went last night. He's in his own head. Like, it's bad. Like, he's such a better goalie than he's showing this year. He's having up in the gray some issues there. Daniel Vladar will be in net. Probably going to be Matt Murray tonight. Flames back-to-back on the road. The top line, UB dropped it in Discord this morning, had awful expected goals for numbers last night. Don't expect that to change tonight. I don't want to like the Leafs, but I feel like you have to like the Leafs tonight. Mitch Marner has had a point in every game since 1997, it feels like. It's not the best power play spot, but Vladar and that back-to-back on the road, I think there's a lot to like for the Leafs tonight.
Yeah, there is. I'll just start on the Calgary side real quick. The Calgary top line in Columbus last night. Columbus, a bottom 10 defensive team, allowing the second most goals per game on the season. Calgary's top line went in last night and put up 0.43 expected goals per 60 minutes, 0.05 overall in the game at 5-on-5. They got absolutely destroyed by Columbus. Now, teams have bad games. It just happens. We've seen the Islanders have both good and bad games in the last week alone, and they're a playoff team. But something that we've talked about often with this Calgary top line is they're just not generating well. I was looking at the season's numbers, or not the season's numbers, the last few weeks before the show. The Calgary second line, the Kadri-Mangiapane line, is generating 2 shot attempts more than the Calgary top line per 60 minutes. They're basically equal. But they're also generating about 33% more expected goals. The Calgary top line is just really, really struggling at generating any quality chances. Whether it was earlier in the season or whether it's been the last couple of weeks when they've been reunited, they just haven't been able to put it together. And Sutter just keeps going back to that line over and over, and I don't really understand why. I don't know what he's seeing that we're not, that he has to keep them together, because I've watched enough Flames games this year to see that line's just not playing well. Defensively, okay, they're fine, but you need them to score goals. They're your first line, and they're just not generating anything.
What happened to Huberdeau? He's not a product of Barkov, because he played on the second line a bunch in Florida. So I don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there either. I assume it's some sort of system thing, because Sutter, whether it was back in Los Angeles or with Calgary, he's a guy that hasn't typically been good with skilled players. Johnny Gaudreau notwithstanding, but Gaudreau's just maybe a top 6 winger in hockey. But it's weird that Huberdeau's playmaking has been so off. Maybe it's, bad chemistry with Toffoli and Lindholm. Maybe it's something with Sutter. I don't know. But his scoring chance generation has just fallen off a cliff this year. It's down something like 40 or 45% from last year. It's just crazy how bad he's been. So, and the flip side of that, as I dropped in our Discord, I've been playing DFS long enough to know that after the Flames top line gets absolutely smoked on the road in Columbus, that they're probably just going to, drop the hammer on Toronto here tonight. I don't actually really believe that. I think that they're probably going to get shut down by the Leafs. It's just, that it's hockey. It's just weird, quirky things. But yeah, I'm not in on the Calgary top line. I mean, I think the saving grace, if you do want to play Calgary one, is that I assume we're not going to get a ton of ownership. In fact, our early ownership run has them at about 6%, which is, I think it's fine for a 5-game slate for a top line. And the Toronto top line hasn't been that good defensively itself. 3.2 expected goals against. What's saving them is their goaltending. It's been that case for Toronto for weeks now. The Toronto top line has a PDO over 1,100. it's just absolutely absurd, the kind of goaltending that they're getting now. This seems like a good matchup for Matt Murray because, like I said, Calgary really struggles to generate quality, particularly that top line. But if you want to play Calgary one, the reason would be is that Toronto top line has been giving up chances. It probably would be the Calgary second line that I would go back to. Kadri, Mangiapane, and Dubé, they are generating good quality. Last 110 minutes together, 3.1 expected goals for, 3.8 actual goals for. So not only they're generating, they're actually scoring as well. Kadri has 17 shots in his last 5 games. That was a little bit of a concern earlier in the season, not shooting a ton. I wish he was shooting a little bit more than like 3.3 shots per game, but we'll take what we can get. So I kind of do like maybe taking pieces of that Calgary second line, Kadri Mangiapane, even Kadri and Dubé, I guess. Kadri Mangiapane mostly going up against that Toronto second line. So that's probably where I am on the Flames. We should also watch for Flames warm-ups because I think Blake Coleman got moved up the lineup last night. Matthew Phillips, the AHL's leading scorer that we talked about on yesterday's show, he was called up and then put into the press box. Now, the coach said he did that because if he plays Phillips, he wants him to play in the top 6, which makes sense. You want him with the more skilled players. So maybe he moves up and plays with Kadri and Mangiapane or something like that. We'll see at warm-ups. But it would be the Calgary second line I have more interest in. It's the Toronto side that I like in this game. I don't think that it should really be that big of a surprise. Toronto's second line, Tavares and Marner will probably see a lot of that Calgary second line that is trading chances back and forth, allowing good goals against. Tavares didn't get there in the last game, but he certainly had his chances. Marner extended his point streak. Calgary does take a fair amount of penalties, 3.6 times shorthanded per game. That's, well above league average. So, the Toronto power play is struggling a little bit with Sandin. They're generating, but they're not scoring. So, maybe there's some issues there. But if I'm stacking an even strength line, it's that second line. And they did have Dennis Mulligan there in practice, I believe, over Nick Robertson because Nick Robertson was injured. So it's probably both second lines I like here, but it's hard to stack the Leafs and leaving Austin Matthews off. So I think it's another case where I might turn into some sort of power play stack, like Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Marner, something along those lines.
Yeah, Matthews has started to pick it up a bit. Maybe he's, his hits are going to start coming down and his goals start going up. But feels weird to say, but like if I'm going to use the Leafs, I want Marner in the lineup. It would be better if Marner was with Matthews, but beggars can't be choosers. Like, I don't mind him with Tavares. Like, yeah, their numbers aren't as good as with Matthews, but I do agree that second line. I think the second line with Malgin's fine. Like, yeah, I'd rather have Robertson there, but he's going to be out for a while. Anyone but Kerfoot there is fine.
Yes. Like, give me Pierre Engvall, give me Dennis Mulligan, give me Zach Aston Reese, just knock Kerfoot. Thank you.
Engvall got suspended, so I think Wayne Simmons is going to be in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, we're not playing.
Well, yeah, no, like we're not. I wouldn't be shocked to see Wayne Simmons on the second line at some point this game. That's why
first Simmons over Kerfoot. Don't even care.
Yeah. The Wayne train. Anyway, on the blue line, I think Rasmus Andersson just is fine at 5K. Like in seasons past, my biggest knock on Andersson was he wasn't shooting the puck. That issue has been eradicated. I like Rasmus Andersson. Noah Hannifin's still fine, but he's more expensive than Andersson. Like how bad Huberdeau's been. Mackenzie Weegar, also awful in Calgary. Like I don't know what's going on there either. On the Leafs side, Rasmus Sandin up to 3,900. That's a bit expensive. Like if you want to add him in for the power play, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll go to Giordano or Hull. Yeah,
3,900. He would only be in power play stacks. That's not somebody that I'm one-offing now at that price. Anderson played 28 minutes last night. That's a pretty heavy workload for him. I wonder if he can do that in back-to-back games. The guy that it hurt most was Weegar. He was down around 17 minutes last night. So if they keep that up, yeah, I do like Anderson. Probably take Hannafin over Anderson tonight just because I'm not sure it's really that great of a power play spot for the Flames. Our old buddy Michael Stone scored last night. He paid off his price, but no, I'm not playing Stone. I think Chris Tanev is fine, but he's a little expensive at 3,600. Like you want more than just a block bonus from him. So, probably just Giordano or Handerfin for me in this game. I guess TJ Brody if you need like a super cheap punt, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's got to be a system thing. Like both Huberdeau and Weegar are struggling mightily. If one of them was struggling, maybe it was just like an adjustment. But like if they're both just been so bad, it's got to be a system thing. As King Bacon Pie has stolen some Uggs and is chewing them. Very nice, very nice, Senor Pie. Los Angeles Kings with a 3.4 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.8 total. Probably Quick, probably Jake Allen. This is an interesting one. I think Gabriel Velarde replaced Arthur Kaliev on the top line in the last game, and I don't know if that's going to stick.
Yeah, it was just for a couple shifts, and then they went back to Kaliev. So I don't know what they were doing, like maybe just trying to shake things up, and then things weren't shook enough, so they just went back to what they had.
Yeah, we'll have to see with morning skate because if Velarde is there with Fiala and Kopitar, they are fully correlated, and that is a very spicy meatball, as we like to say. I like the looks of that line, at least offensively. Defensively could be a different issue, but the Kings' top six is looking very nice tonight. Also, don't mind going to Montreal top line. Like the Kings defensively and in net have been atrocious. Like in our pre-season betting podcast, we like the Kings to have 100 point. One of my bets was the Kings to have 100-point season. But if you cannot stop the puck, you're not going to have a very good season. And I think the Montreal top line's in play for me.
Yeah, I just want to mention like a couple injury notes from the Habs side. Both Jonathan Drouin and Mike Hoffman might play today. They've been they were practicing all week. Pretty sure they're in regular jerseys in practice yesterday. We don't know exactly what the lines would be if they both came back because, they're both wingers. They have a lot of wingers. Dadonov, Armia, Stokastic, Anderson, even with Gallagher hurt, they still have quite a few wingers there. So we'll see what happens. But it looks like Sean Monahan's going to be out, and Hoffman was getting some top power play time for the Habs before he got hurt. So if Hoffman's back, I assume he goes back to the top power play unit, which of course is pretty important here because that Los Angeles penalty kill, still not getting a whole lot better. Bottom 10 by shots allowed over the last few weeks on the penalty kill, bottom 5 by goals allowed. Like it's been a pretty bad PK slide for Los Angeles of late. Not that Montreal has an elite top power play unit or anything like that, but at least the top line's perfectly correlated. Hoffman, he's on pace for like a 25 goal season or something like that, despite not really getting a lot of minutes. He is pretty cheap on DK at 3,700. So if Hoffman plays, he'd be one of those guys that I'd like as a one-off playing down the lineup in Montreal. But yeah, if I full stack anything from the Habs, it will be that top line. Now, they're a roller coaster. Like if you watch Montreal games, which I do, they're actually interesting to watch this year. I don't want to liken them to the Edmonton top line of Draisaitl and McDavid because obviously Draisaitl and McDavid are in another world completely by themselves. I just want to compare them in the manner that they play. Is that if you watch the Montreal top line, there's a lot of east-west passing in the offensive zone. There's a lot of guys trying to slip behind coverage and that type of thing. And that can lead to some absolutely monster games, which we have seen from the Habs this year. And it can lead to a lot of absolute duds because if you're not connecting on those 2 or 3 precise passes that you need for a clean shot, it's a turnover and the puck's going back the other way. So that's just kind of the frustration that can happen with playing Montreal one is that their shot generation numbers won't look, super great, but they are generating good expected goals numbers for the shots that they do generate. You know what I mean? It's kind of the reverse problem of Calgary one, less quantity, more quality. So it can lead to some big games. We have seen the Kings, allow a lot of goals this year. I think they have 2 games allowing at least 8 goals. Not that Montreal is going to get there, obviously, but the Montreal top line has been scoring 4.1 goals over the last 100 minutes together at 5-on-5. They have been used more against second and third lines of late, which I actually don't like because that Kings second line has typically been pretty good defensively this season. And I'd honestly rather see them go against Fiala, Kopitar, and Kaliev than more Danault and Arvidsson. So I hope Martin St. Louis does a galaxy brain himself, but they have been using.
He's smart enough to put him out against a better matchup. I think
I hope so anyways. But yeah, I do like the Montreal top line here. The early ownership's fine. Somewhere's around 8-9% for that top line, or 9-10%, sorry. So I do like Montreal 1. I do like Mike Hoffman as a one-off. Josh Anderson is always a guy that makes a good one-off for me. He's been playing, some relatively decent minutes of late. Over 16 minutes in 3 straight games. He has a shot bonus in there, goals in back-to-back games. Anderson's another guy that I like as one-off because he's a guy that can create a goal out of nothing by himself and can do it for pretty cheap. On the Kings side, I think I do like just going back to Kings 1 here. The Montreal penalty kill has been on a slide. As we always say, the Kings' second power play unit is usually better. But you do get Fiala, Kopitar on that top unit. They are projecting reasonably well, both ownership wise, at about 6 or 7%, and actual points wise for their price. So it's both top lines. I like. People want to play that second line for the Kings. Absolutely no problem. They've been good. Like I said, the power play's been good, better as well. So both Kings line in play, but I think it's the top lines I like in this game.
Yeah, and just make sure, if you're playing the Kings, to check warm-ups, or if they have a morning skate, to make sure if it's Kaliev or Velarde or whoever. But yeah, like if it is Kaliev and you want the top power play unit, you can leave him off, add in Velarde, add in Kempe, do what you need to do. On the blue lines here, I think Mike Matheson's definitely still in play, 4,600.
I'll just say watch for him because I think he had a maintenance day at practice yesterday, and we know when coaches say maintenance day, it could mean out. So we'll see. Yeah. But yeah,
if he's out, I mean, like Chris Weidman would move up to the top power play unit, and that's like putting me on the top power play unit, just kind of there. So if Matheson's in, I do like him. I also like Jonathan Kovacevic, your boy. Didn't they go 11-7 the last game, or wasn't Jack Eye on the fourth line winger?
I'll just look that up real quick while you talk because I can't remember.
I'm almost positive because I remember seeing a post saying like Jack Eye played this is his 16th game playing on the wing or something like that, just because there's so many injuries. So keep an eye on that. On the Kings side, I think Drew Doughty's fine at 5,200, Sean Durzi 4,900, depending on which power play unit you want to play. Other than that, like Matt Roy, I guess is fine, but his price is indicative of just finding the extra money to go up to Doughty or Durzi.
Yeah, they did go 11-7 last game. You were right about that. It's been a while since they played. They were out west. Yeah, I agree on Matheson. I do like him, assuming that he's in today. Kovacevic scored in the last game. Our min price punt actually got there. He's been playing more minutes without David Savard in the lineup, 18, 22, and 19 over his last 3 games. So I like Kovacevic as a full min punt again. On the Kings side, it's Durzi, right? Like the guy just keeps producing. That Kings second power play unit has been better. I think he can be used as a one-off too, just because his price isn't too extreme, but obviously can be used in Kings stacks as well.
Yep, agreed there. As we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by BetMGM, and we can get you a risk-free bet up to $1,000 and 2 months of Stokastic plus Platinum for free. All you got to do is click the link in the description, follow the steps, and you get it. It's easy. You got to have a Stokastic membership. You got to sign up with BetMGM. You got to deposit at least $10, depending on your risk tolerance. You can go up minimum of 10, maximum of 1,000. If you lose your bet, a refund will be issued in site credit. After your bet settles, you'll get an email from BetMGM, not Stokastic. It'll be from BetMGM. So if check your junk folder sometimes. They will have instructions for redeeming 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. Make sure if you want to sign up for this, which you should, this is a ridiculously good deal. Click the link in the description and it'll just have step-by-step and it'll be very, very easy. Buffalo Sabres with a 2.8 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 3.8. This is a home and home. They were in Buffalo last night. Pittsburgh won 4-3 in overtime on a Jeff Carter power play goal, which is just.
Hey, still in the league. Good for him.
I was a big Jeff Carter. That 70s line was one of my favorites when he was with the Kings. I played Pittsburgh 1 last night. They got off to a very, very slow start. Raquel ended up scoring. Gensel ended up scoring. Crosby didn't do anything. I think there is some merit to going back to them again tonight. Now that they can dictate matchups, they did see a bunch of the Cousins line last night. They saw a bunch of the Cousins line and they saw a bunch of the Yost line. So I don't know, like if Sullivan's going to send him out against Tage Thompson tonight. Maybe that's better for them, but they are getting some fairly high ownership. I think both top lines are okay tonight because we're probably going to see Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Casey DeSmith. So I think going back to both sides, despite them being on a home-and-home back-to-back, makes sense.
Yeah. The way that Pittsburgh has been matching their lines through the season has changed a little bit from time to time. Like there were times where they were using exclusively the second line. Columbus was in town the other night. They were used the Crosby line primarily as the shutdown line against Gaudreau and Jenner. So my assumption is that you see top line versus top line here, mostly at 5-on-5. Coach, like we've been saying, coaches are weird and they change their minds on a daily basis, it seems. Crosby didn't do anything yesterday, which kind of sucks because he was the poster boy in our picks article. At least the line did something. The thing about last night's game, I obviously don't watch every single Pittsburgh game. Maybe watched a few over the last month. It was the best that I've seen their power play look maybe all season.
Yeah.
I think they scored twice, including that overtime winner. That's a 4-on-3. It's a little bit different, but they did have a power play goal earlier in the game, which feels unfathomable when you actually look at what they did on the power play before that game. But like we said, pretty good power play spot for Pittsburgh. Again, not that Buffalo takes a lot of penalties. They're about league average in that regard. But Buffalo's 6th most shots against on the penalty kill over the last few weeks. Right in line with Edmonton at 10th most goals against on the penalty kill. Like the PK has not been great. So I think it is a good chance to go right back to the Crosby line. Now they are coming in with a lot of ownership. Early run has them about 17% over on DraftKings. FanDuel a little bit lower where they're more expensive, but still well into the double digits. So a lot of ownership, but we expect them to be a top 2 stack a lot of the time, over 25% of the time on both sites. So, yeah, very much back in on Pittsburgh 1 tonight. They all played over 20 minutes last night. Gensel hasn't been shooting a lot of late, but I think some of those shots are just going to Rickard Rakell, which is fine. It's like if you're stacking the line, as long as the line keeps generating the same number of shots, you don't really care that much who takes them. You just want the shots. So, as long as they're just transferring one shot to the other, I mean, I think it's fine. But still producing or still generating a lot of 5-on-5. They are giving up a lot of 5-on-5, 3.3 expected goals against for that line over the last few weeks together. So, that definitely does bring the Buffalo top line back in play here tonight. They're also coming with pretty reasonable ownership. Not nearly as much on FanDuel where the line's over 25,000. But definitely a lot on DraftKings in the mid-teens somewhere. So
I will say that Skinner's probably going to get suspended, though.
Yeah. Well, is that going to come out in time, do you think?
He has a hearing today.
Oh, they said that. I missed that part. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it'd be interesting to see who they move up there. I mean, would like to see Jack Quinn there, but with our luck, we'll get Casey Middlestat.
I don't know if it's coming down today, but he's definitely got suspended. That was just a wildly bad cross.
Yeah, after the whole goalie thing. Yeah. We'll see what happens there. But sometimes with the suspensions, it's like it doesn't come down for 2 or 3 days, so the player still plays. So we'll see what happens with Skinner. Obviously, if he's out and it's somebody like Jack Quinn or JJ Peterka or something like that, I would still be in on Buffalo 1. if it's not, like if they do move up somebody like Olofsson or Middlestat or even Okposo or whatever, then I would probably be out. But yeah, it's a good point. Thanks for reminding me about that. So Pitt 1 for me. If Cousins, Quinn, and Peterka are still together, I still like them as salary saving line. They still look good. I thought last night in the period I watched, still generating shots. All playing 15 to 17 minutes. Cousins shooting a lot on the power play. So I do like that Buffalo 2 line as a little bit of a filler if you need them to get to more expensive stacks like Minnesota or Toronto or what have you. So probably Pitt 1, Buff 2 for me. I don't mind going back to Buffalo 1, but I think it's the Pittsburgh top line I like the best of the 2 top lines here.
Yeah, I agree there. And I should have looked it up because I remember seeing that Skinner is having a hearing. I just didn't know. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow or Monday. You never know with the NHL. On the blue line, I watched a lot of that Pitt game yesterday, and they had a bunch of power plays, and Matthias Samuelsson was blocking every shot that didn't get through. I don't mind him at 3,800. Rasmus Dahlin is fine at 7,500. If you need a punt, Joki Haru, I guess, is fine. On the Pittsburgh side, Jeff Petrie, if you want to do the power play stuff, it always feels bad clicking in 5,500 Jeff Petrie. That's about it.
Yeah, just real quick. As they said, Skinner was going to have a hearing. They didn't specify which day. Does the NHL work on weekends? I don't know. You can tell by the schedule maker. Maybe they don't sometimes. But, yeah, we'll see about him. On the blue line, Jeff Petrie got the old assist last night. He actually got on the board. Good for him. I don't mind going back to Petrie. Obviously, if you want to go back in power play stacks, he is getting a little bit expensive there at 5,500 on DK. That's getting kind of pricey. FanDuel, it's a little bit more palatable. Besides Petrie, there isn't like really a whole lot. I'd say like you really have to run out and play. Pedersen obviously still in play, but he's getting expensive as well. They're pricing up all the Buffalo defensemen. Honestly, I don't overly love any of the punts on the Buffalo side, considering the prices. Like Jokiharju's at 3K now. He's fine at 3K, but I wouldn't be like, oh, if you need a punt, this is the guy to play, right? So I guess it's the expensive guys I like best here, Petrie and Dahlin.
Yeah, I agree. Gain access to all of our betting experts in our premium Discord by clicking the link in the description below. Use that link to get your first week of access for free. Then it's just $9.95 afterwards. You get access to all of our betting experts. You get all their picks, more access to people you see on the shows. We don't have a betting chat for ourselves yet. Jake. You have a great community to sweat the games with, the bets with, all that good stuff. Like, it's their own Discords. They drop bets in. You guys sweat it. You get the first week for free, and you can bet their bets. You can just give them a test run. It's a lot of fun. So click the link in the description below. Get in your first week for free. Carolina Hurricanes, 3 total heading into New York. The Islanders have a 2.6 total. Am I seeing this correctly? Paul Stastny, top line center.
Yeah.
Aho's out.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
Yep.
This game sucks.
Yep.
Wow. And it's going to be Sorokin in net. So, my God. I don't even know what I want to do with Stastny in 2022. That's their best option here. Like, this game, from a 1 to 3 perspective, maybe some defensemen, maybe some goalies, but like full stacking anything on either side is going to be a mess. Like, if anything, I'd probably go to the Brock Nelson line, but Beauvillier got hurt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, he's up in the air. I don't think that matters too much. Like, the cog on that line is Brock Nelson, but like this game's just a mess.
Yeah. Mess would be a little bit of an understatement. The interesting thing to me for this game is that not only was Paul Stastny practicing on the top line with Jarvis and Natchez, but in their last game, Jesperi Kotkaniemi essentially got yeeted to Narnia. they put Jack Drury on the second line with Svechnikov and Teravainen. That was they played in Anaheim a few days ago, and it wasn't just like something that they just went to for the final few shifts. Like I think it was the entire second half of the game was Drury, Svechnikov, and Teravainen. So Carolina could be going into tonight's game with Paul Stastny and Jack Drury as their top two centers. I've been saying on Twitter, Carolina needs to trade for Ryan O'Reilly, assuming the Blues don't make a push towards the playoffs. They need another center. Like it's just that simple. You could see how bad this lineup, this center depth is when Aho's out. So I was looking at Jarvis's numbers over the last few years when he's been playing with any center but Sebastian Aho, and they're not very good. 2 expected goals generated per 60 minutes, 0.5 goals generated per 60 minutes. Paul Stastny's scoring chance contributions, which are scoring chances generated for teammates plus his own individual ones, worse than league average and just really bad in general so far this season. Not a huge sample yet, obviously, but doesn't look good. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, we keep saying it, just a complete black hole offensively. Like there is a reason why Jack Drury was moved up to the second line. Kotkaniemi's doing nothing. So I hate saying I don't see how Carolina scores goals here. I think the way that Carolina might score goals would be the Martinook Stahl fast line.
Me too. I didn't want to admit it.
Like this is where we're at in this game is like, I guess you can play Jarvis, Stastny, and Natchez together. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in it. That Carolina third line, not bad. 3.1 goals per 60 minutes so far on the season. They're controlling over 60% of the expected goal share. The way the Islanders run their lines, they're not going to see any of the quote checking lines from the Islanders. They're going to see that top six, Barzal, Wahlstrom, Bailey Nelson, or Lee Nelson. Not very good defensively, either of those lines. Like, I'm not going to pay up $6,600 for Svechnikov to play with Jack Drury. I'm not going to pay $6,700 for Martin Natchez to play with Paul Stastny going into Ilya Sorokin. If you're playing 150 lineups, obviously that's a completely different story. If you're only playing a couple, honestly, it's Martinook Stahl fast that I like best on the Carolina side. For the Islanders, I mean, it would kind of depend to see what they do here. This is just a gut feeling going to happen. I wonder if Kyle Palmieri returns for this game because the beat writers were making a note to say that A, he's been skating on his own all week, and B, that he wasn't going to be in the lineup last night. Like if he was out for the weekend, they wouldn't have made a point to say at warmups that Kyle Palmieri wasn't on the ice. So I have a sneaking suspicion he may return now that if Beauvillier's out and go to that second line. We'll see what happens at warmups. But I would probably go back to Lee and Nelson. I worry about Barzal and Wahlstrom actually getting some of that Stahl fast Martinook matchup. So Lee, Nelson, and whoever's with them would be my pick on the Islanders side. For Carolina, it would probably be the third line. This looks like a mess of a game.
Yeah, this game is crazy. So we'll just move on to the last one. Minnesota Wild with a 3.2 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks also have a 3.2. The Wild played last night, lost to the Oilers. The first power play of the night for the Wild, Jared Spurgeon was on the top unit. The rest of the power plays, Alex Goligoski was on the top unit. Empty net scenario, Goligoski was not on the ice. It was Spurgeon and Brodin. Whatever. Like another game with lack of center options for the Wild. Like I like the Wild top line here, but not a huge Stam Steele in DFS guy. I guess you could power play stack, leave off Steele, add in Joel Eriksson Ek, or add in a Boldy. And I think that is probably how I'd use the Wild. On the Canucks side, I wish Kuzmenko was on the second line with Pettersson and Soup. He's not. so I think I'd go straight to the top line here. I think this is an important game, and it's also the late night game, and there's stuff to like on both sides.
Yeah, I think I may be a little bit of a bigger fan of Steele than you, and
I like Steele, just not super enthusiastic about him for DFS.
Yeah, I get that, especially where he's not on the power play. But I was looking at the ice time. He's been playing like 17 minutes, over the last little bit, averaging 17 minutes a night. That's not nothing. And the top line with him there, 3.3 expected goals for per 60 minutes. That is, I think, 50% higher than what they were doing with Freddie Gaudreau, which kind of speaks to Matt Boldy's issues in this game. I do like just going right back to that Minnesota top line. Zuccarello, Steele, Kaprizov. They're probably going to come in with very high ownership just because they are reasonably priced, at least on DraftKings. Especially even on FanDuel, they're just a little over 20K, so it's not that bad. And I'm not too worried about the matchups here. Vancouver top line about break even by expected goal share, a little bit worse by expected goals against. They're getting great goaltending behind them, which is kind of saving them. It's like the Leafs top line in that sense. If they do use Vancouver too as a shutdown line, which they don't do a lot, but I don't think they'll do it with Besser there especially, but they have done it before. Even that second line with Besser there, 2.9 expected goals against, 4 actual goals against. So I do think it's a good matchup for the Minnesota top line. Like, if that line can stop shooting 7% of 5-on-5, Kaprizov's offensive numbers would be even better than they are now. And he's on just a ridiculous point streak, like 14 games and 21 points or 22 points or something like that it is now. So I do like going right back to Minnesota 1. Not going to Boldy, Gaudreau, and Patan. Patan played like 10 minutes last night. The Boldy and Gaudreau offensive numbers are just like pathetic. 2.1 expected goals for. The defensive numbers are great, but that's Gaudreau's calling card. It's not offense. The Minnesota third line is kind of interesting. Eriksson Ek, Foligno, Greenway. At least they get ice time. You know what I mean? And Eriksson Ek gets top power play minutes. I think like a 2-man there is just fine, but they're coming in with a lot of ownership. So I'd honestly probably just go back to Carolina, go to Carolina 3 instead. You know what I mean? On the Vancouver side, I do like that Pettersson, Besser, Mikheyev line in a nutshell, because I think they'll see a lot of that Minnesota second line. Gaudreau good defensively. I'm not sure how long they actually keep that line together because they're really not doing anything. Pettersson's been shooting a lot on the power play, but they're coming in with reasonably high ownership. And, Höglander, Horvat, and Miller have been really, really good of late. 3-point goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. It's probably both top lines again that I like here in this game. If you want to dip down, Eriksson Ek, Foligno, Greenway, some sort of 2-man there from the Minnesota side is where I would go to. And I agree with you. If you want, like, Eriksson Ek has 23 shots in his last 5 games. So if you want to take off Steele and put Eriksson Ek, in some sort of Minnesota power play stack, I agree with you. I think that would be another direction to go. Of course, with Alex Goligoski, very reasonably priced, throw him into.
Yep, agreed there. Coming up right after us at the top of the hour, NBA Strategy Show with Terry and Adam at 10. I will be back at 4 o'clock for MMA Live before lock. So if you are playing UFC DFS today, you'll see my face again at 4 p.m. Eastern. Who you liking in net tonight on this wild little 5-gamer?
I mean, it's obviously got to be Sorokin, right? For some reason, he's priced at 7,200 at home. He's going to be wildly owned, but it seems like, especially with Aho missing, seems like a really good spot for Sorokin. I think Matt Murray's fine as well. Calgary, like we said, they've been struggling to really generate a lot other than that second line. Murray's just been on a tear. His price isn't super expensive at 8,100, so I think it's Sorokin or Murray for me tonight.
Yeah, same. Like, if you have leans otherwise, like maybe Philip Gustafsson, but like there's nothing other, like Sorokin and Matt Murray are the obvious ones. The rest are plug your nose and play them. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
We're going to the Kings-Habs game, and we're going to the top line for Los Angeles, and we're going to Kevin Fiala.
Very nice. Very nice. I had a king, so now I'm all.
Well, just take a king. We'll go on all
No.
We're our boys.
Kirill Kaprizov.
All right, I like it. So
Yeah.
I guess those are both kind of chalk tonight.
Yeah.
You're not going super spicy. All right, I like it.
Yeah, I was going to say Dakota Joshua, but he had 2 goals in it. I'm just kidding. I'm not going Dakota Joshua. Kirill Kaprizov. So for Cliffy, I am Joshua. You know us by now. Smash that like button. We will be back on Monday for a 6-gamer. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you on the socials.
Good luck, everyone.